something with you. You know, I kind of imagine that some dogs end up being a little disappointed because they're getting nothing more than a bowl of kibble. Please, if you're doing that, get your animals onto a live or cooked real food diet. Kibble is not food, and you know, there's been so many horrendous stories about phenobarbital in pet food and all sorts of other toxins like melamine and rat poisoning and horrible things. And imagine too having to eat that horrible dry protein food that has no nutritional value day in and day out. So please, if you are still feeding your animals protein food like kibble, consider swapping them over to a real species appropriate diet, because you're going to cut out so many heartaches and worry and consternation, and of course save yourself a lot of money down the line, because there is so much cancer related to the sugars and the carbohydrates that are, and all the toxins that are being thrown into dog food. I always say, if you wouldn't eat it, don't give it to your beautiful beloved animal companions. So let's get to the turkey dinner that is kind for your animals, and really look at this, you know, what's safe, what's not safe. I did speak about this the other day where, you know, obviously we're not wanting to, there go my hottie does. We're not wanting to give our animals things like salmon skin or turkey skin, which is loaded in fats. It's just too rich for your animals, and they're not going to feel really great after that. But just say no to all those sort of processed foods, and look at some of the ways that you can enrich your animal and give thanks for them over Thanksgiving and the holidays. For decades, you know, they've been repeating that salts and spices and human foods are not good for our dogs. And of course, this has created a multi-billion-dollar industry where so many people are forgetting to trust their animals and forgetting to trust in nature as medicine and food as medicine over what Dr. Whitecoat has to say. And I don't know of one single physician who says that processed food is better than a wholesome diet for people or animals. And yet the processed pet food industry is claiming exactly that no real food for dogs and cats, which we've got to change. So take a look at my Pause for All Whole Food for Happy Pets. It also includes an incredibly concise behavior or emotional sort of tendency of imbalance to Bach or tree remedies, which is very helpful so that you can really be your own medicine and have the confidence to know that you're doing the best for your animals. So, you know, I'm not necessarily suggesting either that your dog should get what you eat all the time. Generally, I do recommend a raw or slow cooked diet for dogs and cats. But when it comes to the holidays, it would feel wrong to ignore your dog's pleading eyes. I mean, who can resist those big eyes that they're so good at manipulating us with? And of course, we all love seeing our dogs jumping in excitement, watching the turkey plate coming or whatever it is that you're eating, the chicken. So I want to just go through a list of turkey dinner items that your dog can and cannot eat. And what you need to know about that, because I've been an advocate for raw and cooked diet for, oh my gosh, you know, more than 10 years, when I started to realize that we sort of, I myself had fallen into that trap of believing that it was a scientific diet and it was so much better and so much more convenient. And I lost two of my cats to cancer, and three of my dogs, actually, my huskies from lung cancer, but also my other rescue miniature Dalmatian, I was trying to think, 101 Dalmatians, to liver cancer as well. So you know, I think today we focus only on cooked people food items that may be part of your holiday table. But just know, you know, turkey meat, if you're a meat eater, your dog is really, really lucky. The skin, the white and the dark meat, plus all the giblets and the heart and the insides are all good to go on your dog's plate. And of course, the general rule, like for any bones, is never to give your dog cooked bones. The cooking process makes bones very indigestible, and also they can tear the intestine and also create intestinal obstructions. So from time to time, I do hear about dogs getting into cooked bones. And if this happens to you, I just suggest that you feed your dog a half, or maybe a quarter to a cup of cooked squash. I love butternut squash, and my dogs get it all the time, or pumpkin. I just add a half or two teaspoons of soaked flaxseed. All you need to do is pour hot water over the flaxseed and get until it gets all really, really slimy. And of course, look out for my Pause for All book, where of course bones are brilliant for making bone broth, which is full of collagen and all those good yummy minerals and vitamins for your dog and for yourself as well. And of course, I have a wonderful bone broth recipe or two in there. I like to add apple cider vinegar just to help bring out the marrow and all the goodness from the bones. But, you know, consider saving all the bones, and then after Thanksgiving or after Christmas, getting a big pot and just slow cooking that so that it can release and make a beautiful bone broth, which of course is great in the hot weather to freeze. I like to freeze them into ice trays, and I give my dogs that for treats, sometimes with fermented blueberries or a little bit of sauerkraut in them as well. So, you know, there's never throw your bones out. And now let's talk about stuffing, because there's a lot of reasons why not to give your dog turkey stuffing or the stuffing in the poultry that you're using, whether it's a chicken or a duck. Because bread, remember, it's not ideal for dogs. Grains are not part of the species appropriate diet for canines. Oftentimes there's onions and chives in there. If you're not making it yourself, or you are making it yourself, we love the flavor of the onions and the chive in our stuffings, but they're toxic for dogs, and they can really reduce the viability of red blood cells and can cause a lot of oxidative damage, which leads to that sickle cell anemia that nobody wants for their animals. And you know, celery stalks, often they're also used in flavoring the turkey stuffing. And while they're safe, it's unlikely that anyone would cook them apart from in stuffing. Raisins as well, you know, be very aware. Grapes, dried grapes or raisins are poisonous to dogs, and they carry a very high risk of causing renal failure in dogs. And I've seen raisin poisoning many, many times, and it is not a pleasant sight. But a lot of my patients are fortunate to recover from sort of acute renal failure, but not all dogs are so lucky. So, you know, take raisin toxicity very seriously. And also know too, you know, almonds are not toxic for dogs. However, I don't suggest giving them to your dogs as a snack or a treat. And a lot of times almonds are ground up and put into stuffing as well. Let's talk about spices. Salt, despite popular belief, a moderate amount of salt in a turkey dinner, it's fine for dogs. It's very possible that the no salt recommendation for dog was invented by kibble makers to sell more of their products and discourage dog lovers from feeding people food, you know, real live food. And many farm animals, we've seen cattle and horses, they get salt licks. And of course, table salt is also found in blood and meat. But if you like your meal saltier, just reduce the amount of sodium to consider your dog and use natural Himalayan salt, or, you know, kosher sea salt in there instead. I love Madden salt. And of course, it's great. I actually often put a little bit of Himalayan salt in my dog's water and my cat's water, because it's a great addition in moderation. Pepper, of course, is fantastic, a ground pepper, and it's been used in turmeric golden paste for years, because it's the pepper actually allows for optimum absorption of the turmeric. So, you know, again, safe in moderate amounts. If it's too burny, your animals are not going to like it anyway. Sage is great. It's commonly used in stuffing, and it's totally non-toxic for your dog. So sage gets the tick here. Rosemary gets the tick. It's a non-toxic spice in small amounts, but it may affect the uterus and its contractility. So it's not recommended in essential oil form or as a herb. If you have pregnant females in the house. And of course, garlic. Who doesn't love garlic? My dogs love it, and it's great for, it's an instant flea repellent. And actually, the flies don't like it very much either. So, you know, again, everything in moderation. I've seen dogs have sickle cell anemia from too much garlic. So be aware, be mindful that in large amounts, as all the plants from the onion family, garlic can be toxic to your dog's red blood cells. So just small amounts. Let's talk some vegetables here. So remember, potatoes are a starch, and the only potato that I use in my Vata dog's diet are sweet potatoes. Remember, potatoes come from the nightshade family, like the aubergines, and while only the roots and the leaves are toxic, many people agree that potatoes are not a species appropriate for your dogs. So don't give it to them. As I said, yams and sweet potatoes are a very good, healthy addition to your dog's diet anytime. And I prefer to bake sweet potatoes and make sweet potato fries rather than normal roast potatoes anyway, because I have human people in my family that have insulin resistance. So we try and stay away from starches, potatoes and rices anyway. Brussels sprouts, I hated those as a child, didn't you? But I love them now, and they are very goitrogenic. So they reduce the level of thyroid hormones by blocking the uptake of iodine. So if you're cooking, it does eliminate that to some effect, and that's why it's okay to put Brussels sprouts in your dog's festive meal. And of course, green beans are incredible. Yehadi does agree, raw or cooked. If you like beans as a side, your dog is going to enjoy those too. And in fact, I chop those up when they're in season, and I add them to my dog's slow cooked meals all the time, because they're great fiber. And of course, they help with cultivating a very healthy gut microbiome for us as well. We get butternut here in South Africa, and I love it. I love it any which way, and my dogs love it too. So I don't know a lot of dogs that are very excited about chewing on raw squash of any time, but when you do cook it, it's a beautiful anti-inflammatory and a great addition to you and your dog's dinner, including at Thanksgiving. So add squash, and if you get them, oftentimes when they're in season, I'll buy a whole bunch and I'll roast them all up and mush them up, and I'll freeze big packets of it that I can then take out when they're not available, and add those to my dog's slow cooked dinners. Let's talk condiments. So gravy, who doesn't love gravy? Especially when it's made with all that lovely dripping, if you are a meat eater. But, you know, remember, traditional gravies, they contain flour. They're made from a roux or a cornstarch that thickens it, and a lot of salt, which does not make it ideal for dogs. So, you know, try a gluten-free gravy recipe and use it sparingly. You know, no matter if you use gravy or not, I can guarantee your dog's going to love their festive dinners anyway. Cranberries is one of those that I'm a little bit on the fence about, because although they're great for dogs and can be used, as we know, for UTIs and bladder infections. A lot of the bought cranberry sauces out there, they have so much sugar added to them, and I don't like sugar anyway. So it kind of puts it in the gray zone for me. If you're not making your own cranberry sauce, where you're just using the natural juices of the cranberries and maybe a little bit of Manuka honey, stay away with that for your dog. It's okay in small amounts, but your dog is not going to miss it if it isn't there. And of course, I have to bring up the xylitol story again, because it's creeping into more and more pre-made and ready meals these days, and it is toxic to your dogs and your cats. So, you know, I always say homemade is the best way to go. At least you know what you're putting in there is real and live and raw. And this is a funny one too, you know. I just like to do my sweet potatoes chopped, sprinkled, tossed with a little bit of Madden salt and pepper, a little bit of beautiful virgin olive oil, and slow cooked. But I know I've heard some weird things in recipes of friends of mine in the UK and in the States, where a lot of times they make sweet potato casserole with marshmallows. And, you know, what are marshmallows? Egg whites and a ton of sugar and starch. So that is an absolute no-no, not just for you, but for your animals as well. Let's move on to dessert. So pumpkin pie filling. Pumpkin, as I said, butternut, all the squash family, they're great for treating diarrhea in dogs. But pumpkin pie filling, again, it's not a very common thing in where I live, but I know in the States you love your pumpkin pie, and it's often made, isn't it, with milk and sugar, because it's kind of like a custard, and neither of those are good for dogs. So just keep them away from the pumpkin pie. And mincemeat again, you know, the Christmas pies, what do they call them, mince pies? Or any kind of pie filling that's got mincemeat in it, and I'm talking about fruit mincemeat. Most of it is grapes, raisins, and it's a big no-no for dogs because it's got a lot of sugar, it's got currants, it's got raisins, it's got apples, it's got candied citrus peel, and a lot of suet, and none of those are good for your dog. So no mincemeats, to keep those out of bounds, including the Christmas cake. And, you know, anything, same as us, the same thing goes. My rule of thumb is if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it and don't give it to your animals. If it starts with a P, so it's processed, pies, pastas, pastries. What else are peas? Peas actually are not good for dogs either. But anything that has got a large amount of flour and fat is going to aggravate your dog's digestive system. And yes, the dogs have evolved to digest protein, but they're not very equipped to digest sugars and starches and complex carbohydrates. And again, good reason to get them away from the kibble. Our dogs are not designed to eat carbs and fillers like corn and soy and all those horrible processed carbs and sugars. So, you know, don't focus so much on the healthy fats. It's you know, pancreatitis comes from a diet that's very rich in complex carbohydrates. And my cat Winston that I adopted, because if I'd left him in the shelter, he would have died. He had Hashis and he had pancreatitis, and I'm sure it was because he was fed a kibble-based diet up until when he came to my house. So remember too, the canine pancreas is not designed to digest carbohydrates. And you're going to always put strain on this lean pancreas, and it's always going to create inflammation. So stay away. I've spoken about fruit pie filling. Don't do it. You know, it's not good for them, and it's not good for us either. So it's always good to always eat fruit at least 1 hour before or 3 hours after your main meal that contains protein, because our digestive enzymes, we need different digestive enzymes to digest protein and carbs and sugar. So watch out for that. And, the good news is that no dog is going to say they want pie over turkey, so, or chicken. Again, nuts are generally not good for dogs and cause a lot of vomiting and diarrhea. Although, interestingly enough, my dogs love macadamias. They'll often spend hours sitting there breaking the hard outer woody shell of my macadamias that fall off my macadamia tree to get to the insides. But again, they're not eating massive amounts of those, and they can cause diarrhea. So in moderation. Pistachios, my one dog loves them. I'm not sure if it's the salt that he loves or the actual pistachios, and I don't know if he actually chews them or just swallows them. But most dogs are not crazy about nuts anyway. Dairy, again, is a no-no for animals. So ice cream, whipped cream. Interestingly too, dogs will pretty much eat anything. I had one of my cats, in Satchmo, he was a Burmese. He loved frozen yogurt, and most cats love cream. And there's my Daisy dog. But, dairy's not great for dogs. And it's also not the end of the world if you give your dog a half a scoop of ice cream or a bit of whipped cream as dessert. But the purists may say, and that I'm being irresponsible here, but striving for absolute perfection isn't fun either. So relax a little bit and enjoy your holidays and enjoy giving thanks for the animals that gave up their lives to be on your table and to feed your dogs and your cats, who are not supposed to be vegetarian. They're designed to eat meat. So even if you've made the choice to not eat meat, please don't try and get your animals onto a vegan or plant-based diet. They really need meat to keep them happy and healthy. And, who doesn't love to see their animals' excitement from getting a little bit of a treat, whether that's the turkey or the ice cream or the whipped cream. And some foods are just universally irresistible for dogs and cats and people. So I hope you found this helpful. If you know somebody that you want to share this with, please do. The more people that share and subscribe and interact on my YouTube channel, on my various social media, the more word we can get out there, and the more we can help be our own medicine and trust our own intuition that we're doing the best for our animals as well as our own bodies. So have a happy holiday season. I am so grateful and appreciative for you being part of my tribe and for loving animals and really going the extra mile to make sure that they're happy and healthy and fulfilled. And of course, get your phone or your camera ready to snap your Thanksgiving and your Christmas holiday pictures of your dogs and your cats or any other celebration. I would love to see them. So share them on my Facebook page and just enjoy the holidays. I think in these times of so much heartbreak and so many crises and so much work that we have to do collectively as a species on the planet, it's so important to just take 5 minutes every single day, not just on Thanksgiving, to really appreciate actively how abundant you really are and how fortunate you are to be alive at this time, and to just give thanks for the small blessings and just keep being the light for others to receive. And I'll meet you there. So please post me pictures and let me know what your dog and cat's favorite treats are over the holidays. And I'd love to hear it. All right. Take care. Bye.